Hello, and a very warm welcome back to the Give Me a Whole Yeah podcast. This is one of my special How Would You Book episodes. I believe this is the 7th one, and we are booking William Regal's return to WWE, whenever that may be. And I have Anthony here, which makes everything better. How cool is that?
Woohoo!
Whoa, yeah!
Oh yeah, let's go!
Hello, this is Shotzi Blackheart, and welcome to Gimme a Whole Yeah! I hope everyone checking this out in Yorkshire and beyond is having a great day.
Thank you, Shotzi. Once again, guys, for those that have not been on these episodes before, I used to pre-record them and we started with the last one to do them live. This is about you guys, fantasy booking, what you would like to see. We comment, we look at your comments just like we do on normal live streams on shows. But I want you to fantasy book William Regal's return to WWE. Do you want to see him do one more match? Do you want to see him in NXT? Do you want to see him on SmackDown? Do you want to see him working with his son Charlie Dempsey in NXT or wherever that may be? But that is why we are here. So put your fantasy booking in the comments. Michael's in, Tombstone and Forever is in. We are less than an hour away from AEW Dynamite, which is going to be cool. So Anthony will be taking you into that one. But yes, Anthony, you are here. It was a surprise to me. A wonderful surprise.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here. Since you are here and you've made the time, you did a bit of research going into this. You listened to Tony Khan's media call for Ring of Honor.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
I just kind of like, I'm like, oh, let's fantasy book that and let's see what people have to say. And I don't really think much more about it. So you're like properly researched. What is happening? What do you think is happening? Because you hit me with some news that before this that I didn't know about because I hadn't listened to that Ring of Honor Final Battle media call briefing.
So the facts are he's been released. Tony Khan talked a lot in the media call about the problems he's had with his mother's health over the last year, about her being really sick. And it was around this time that William Regal was asking for his release. And it ended up being a large chat. And part of the reason for the release from William Regal is to spend time with his son, who is obviously Charlie Dempsey in NXT. And he's been granted that release as it was a difficult decision for Tony Khan to come to, but he has been granted his release. However, he later on got asked a little bit about stipulations within the release, and one of the stipulations that Tony Khan mentioned that he believes the legal team has put in is that he won't be able to be on screen for the first year, which kind of makes sense. But I think we kind of forget that for this sort of fantasy booking. This is about just having a good time and talking about our opinions, our sort of booking. And to be honest, I think he's just going to be in NXT anyway. I think he's just going to be backstage in NXT, living in Florida, not touring with the Raw and SmackDown shows. But let's fantasy book, Dom. Let's have some fun because there's some fun ideas we can come up with.
Yeah. I think for me, obviously, before I had that news, I mean, you're right. It does make sense from Tony Khan's perspective. It makes so much sense to have that legal stipulation in place. I think there's a danger for Tony Khan that he could become a bit of a pushover maybe with some of the things that he's allowed previous talents to leave their contracts and
well, he hasn't, and that's the really interesting thing about this, Dom. If you look at like Andrade, who went about trying to get his release by punching Sammy Guevara in the face, he hasn't got his release. He hasn't got what he's wanted. And actually, Regal's approached Tony Khan as an adult and had a conversation with him. And actually, they've been able to come to an agreement on that. Same with CM Punk in many respects. He didn't punch someone in the face, but he did backstage. But he punched the company in the face, that's for sure, by doing what he did at that media scrum. And actually, I think one of the things that Tony Khan was saying and why he was relating this to his mother so much was because it is a family company. He wants it to be a family company. He wants it to be people that look after the performers. And I think with this, he proves that that's absolutely the case.
Yeah, and it's so there is a lot of good to come out of that. It's such a shame for Regal to leave AEW in a time where obviously in a very short time, people can say what they want about the length of Regal's contract in AEW, but he launched the Blackpool Combat Club. He's I would say arguably made MJF into the most the evilest heel on our screens. I think in wrestling, I would say that is still MJF, and I think that partly is down to William Regal. So a very short but very sweet run in AEW for Regal, and I think, like I say, for you telling me that stuff there. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And I think that Regal will be fine with that. But when he does return to our screens, and that is what we're here to discuss. You see, I was torn because I love William Regal. He's one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. He's a Hall of Famer. I feel he's a surefire Hall of Famer. I don't think he's in the Hall of Fame yet. But I think that. So I was thinking, wouldn't it be great for him to have one more match? One more match or something with Cody Rhodes or somewhere like that, just to, something like that. But realistically, I don't think that's going to happen. But this isn't really about us. This is about you guys, and that's why. That's why we're here. That's why we do these fantasy booking videos, these how would you book videos. So Tombstone, you've offered something interesting there. Regal returns as a manager for Dempsey, gives him brass knuckles to cheat as a sort of passing of the torch to the next generation. Now that's a really interesting shout, Tombstoner. Charlie Dempsey he's had a series of vignettes on NXT in recent weeks, and obviously debuted, I think, last night properly. In dominant fashion on NXT. I could see him really doing well in a year down the line, wherever Dempsey is, if he's still in NXT. I think an on-screen role for Regal as manager of Dempsey, Anthony, could be arguably, I think, is the best route for him. I was thinking about, we're going to talk a little bit about potentially, a SmackDown General Manager role for Regal, because I think he always thrived. He is the person I think of when I think of a general manager, of a brand, general manager of NXT, general manager, I think, of Raw. He was for a time as well. So for me, a general manager role for him down the line, maybe in the last year of his career, 2, maybe 3 years from now. Would be really cool. But I think certainly initially, after a year being not on television due to his contract with AEW, I think a manager role for Dempsey would be fantastic, Anthony, and a great shout there from Tombstone. Are your thoughts on that one, Anthony?
Yes and no. I think there was a lot to that. Sorry. First of all, with his manager to Dempsey, the issue I have with that and the brass knuckles is that it had become very similar to the MJF story. And actually, I think you need to give him something different now, whether that's him being the face that he is anyway to his fans. And actually, I think his AEW run has been one of the best runs since he was wrestling. I mean, William Regal will always be synonymous with the sort of British wrestling scene and being able to infiltrate his way into the American scene from wrestling guys like Adrian Street and stuff like that. He was really sort of synonymous as that generation, being able to break into the American audience, which wasn't an easy thing to do. And I think that's what his legacy will go down as. But in terms of since he was wrestling, I think this has been his best run. He's been on screen every week. He's been doing some cracking commentary work and stuff like that. And he's really put over two groups. He's put over the Blackpool Combat Club, who are some of the biggest wrestlers in the world, as well as the story with MJF. So personally, I wouldn't go directly for that Tombstoner, but only because I think it'd be too similar to MJF.
Interesting part. But I think a year down the line, when Regal is on TV again, I think you could recycle that storyline. It'd be okay.
Maybe. Yeah.
I think, we're talking a year down the line here, but it's interesting.
But dude, a year down the line, why would you put him with Dempsey when you could potentially put him with MJF? What
you mean in WWE?
Yep.
That's interesting. That's an angle we might get to. We've got some time to go into that. Michael has offered an insight here, which is great. Thank you very much for that, Michael. Once again, guys, this is about you guys talking to us about what you would want, how you would want a fantasy book William Regal. So do get your pitches in, and we will discuss them. There is a vote, by the way, in the chat for this current discussion around will he manage his son in NXT. So do vote on that. personally, Michael says on NXT, soon as this weekend, have him come out. Well, that's already vetoed, unfortunately, because of the agreement with Tony Khan. But again, we'll fantasy book this. Personally, on NXT, as soon as this weekend, have him come out at the main event. Bron Breakker wins, then Charlie comes out and goes to attack Bron, and then you hear Regal's music and the crowd pops. But Regal comes out from behind and hits Bron with the brass knuckles. See, that is fantastic. I like that a lot. But the problem is, you're sort of skyrocketing Dempsey there, and you're forgetting that there's a host of challengers. I think NXT has a problem with the amount of people that have been elevated to face Bron. I mean, it's quite clear that Apollo Crews is going to be fed to Bron Breakker this weekend, and then you've got, I think, JD McDonough is there. There's a few other people. Axiom A-Kid, former A-Kid, is in the in this match now for a number one contendership. So there's a lot of people in that run, and obviously Charlie Dempsey's only been there a week, so I like it, and I think that'd be a really good role for Regal, to come in and take the shine off Bron Breakker. Again, as Bron Breakker, I guess, is the Moxley of this, like he's the most dominant champion outside of Reigns at the moment, is Bron Breakker. So, you've and obviously Moxley was that before in AEW. So I think it'd be cool to have Regal, say if Bron Breakker happened to be champion in a year's time, or if we were fantasy booking as soon as this weekend, it would be an incredible debut to have Regal go back to NXT and, and make an immediate impact. That you could also play off history there. Obviously, Regal's got a lot of history in wrestling and quite probably some WCW history of some sort with his dad, with Bron Breakker's dad and the Steiners. So you could play on that, and I know they've done that before as well with other talents. But nice segue. I will be covering NXT this weekend. I thought it was Ring of Honor is pretty early on in the UK when they're on a final battle.
You're doing both shows?
Yeah, so it's 8:45 in the UK start time for Ring of Honor. Nice. So I thought, what, an NXT looks good. We've got Isla Dawn debuting on NXT. Well, not debuting. She had a match this past weekend, but debuting her first big pay-per-view. Isla, we've done an interview with Isla on the channel. Fantastic talent. Really excited to see her have this opportunity. There's other great talents that I haven't kind of caught up with. I'm very excited because it was reported in the crowd, for example, that Vincent and Dutch from The Righteous in Ring of Honor, who are, of course, rumored to be associated with Bray on NXT. But that is for this weekend, and we are back to talk about.
I feel like they've got to do something big, haven't they? Because they're going to be coming off the Ring of Honor pay-per-view where there's going to be a lot of talking points. So there's going to be something big on that NXT show. If they do it correctly, they should do. Yeah,
and so I think there's something, but I will be there covering that show this weekend. But yeah, Michael, very good booking. Unfortunately, and like I say, we me and you would have probably had a field day. We'd have probably been orgasming over the idea that William Regal could show up in NXT this weekend at the NXT deadline that I'm watching on Saturday. We're like, Regal's coming back this weekend. But then Anthony was like, quite rightly, with journalistic integrity, he's saying, well, actually, that's
I ain't no journalist. Don't call me no journalist. I'm just a bloody fan, man.
because Anthony corrected, Anthony done his research, and and Tony Khan has cleared up that Regal will not be on television for a year. Anthony, your thoughts on fantasy booking? Regal coming in. Does he go into the main event scene straight away on NXT? And we'll talk about your pitch in a minute, which is MJF. MJF being in WWE, which I think is huge. But for now, let's focus on Michael's pitch here. Keeping Regal in NXT with his son Charlie, and what you think about. Would at that time, I guess, in a year's time, would Charlie Dempsey be in the main event facing Bron Breakker, and could Regal debut in that way?
I don't know. It's hard to sort of see in a year's time potentially, but you need to do a lot with Charlie. I mean, you couldn't do it this weekend, which is what Michael's doing, because you'd be instantly pushing Charlie to the top, and I don't know if he's ready for that yet. I think that's part of the point of NXT and part of the reason that he's there. To sort of, we'd have another Bron Breakker situation, which feels like a big guy sort of sitting in limbo. So I probably wouldn't do that this weekend. In a year's time, it's hard to tell how much they're gonna work with him backstage and how good his wrestling is going to be. Because ultimately, NXT should be looking at going back to that black and gold brand, which was great wrestling each week, and
it is back there now.
Well, we haven't seen it yet. It's not great wrestling yet. It's not that Finn Balor. It's not that Samoa Joe era yet at all. The women's division, especially, seems all over the place at the minute. But there's that's where they need to be heading to, and to do that, you want a guy like Regal working backstage to work with the talents to produce great matches, to produce great television. NXT used to be the place before AW come along to watch wrestling. And it was the one WWE product where you could watch great wrestling and not just sort of silly segments and stuff like that. Well, it had story and everything. I mean, NXT in them years, 2017, 2018, was the best brand in the world, you know. And NXT UK, I'd argue, became that later on after the sort of claws of Vince had been taken and Bruce had been taken into NXT 2.0. I think that's what they need to get back to. WWE needs that product that is the sort of purer wrestling product, and NXT is a great place for that. So I think Regal going there could absolutely influence that in the future.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. And actually, you know your inside knowledge there, having read, having listened to the press conference earlier, it doesn't spell doom and gloom as much as I thought it did when I first heard it. When you first told me, I was like, oh man, we're not going to get to see Regal on TV. But actually, you're right. Regal's probably not bothered too much about being on TV at this point in his career. He's just had a fantastic run on television in AEW. I think it'll whet the appetite more and more for when he does eventually return to TV. And when he does, I don't think it'll be full time. I think it'll be, for spots and to manage and to things like that, and to do some managerial stuff.
It certainly won't be main roster. I think part of the issue with the AEW is the travel, which the main roster do all the time. NXT, thankfully, they don't. You can do it at Florida. So I think NXT is a place for him to keep him in a comfortable place as he sort of enters the golden years, I guess, or twilight years of his career in there, and to enjoy that with his son. And that's important, And that's another reason you don't want to push his son to the top straight away, because then what are you going to do? Move his son up to main roster and leave Regal back there? And it's time to make him into a star, that he can be in that sort of performance center. Yeah,
this is an incredible time to again build. You got a year, with there's nobody better backstage, than Regal to mentor you. You got a year to make Charlie Dempsey into a star. And a year to do that, to make him into a new Daniel. Charlie Dempsey already has the markings of a Daniel Bryan, and dare I say it, and please, please remember the context of the conversation. That sort of what Chris Benoit was. The sort of technical masterclass. Not necessarily a big promo person, but could be a world champion down the line. A Daniel Bryan, that kind of thing. You could see Dempsey in that role, and this is a year to build him in NXT. And then when his dad comes back onto television, that'll be a huge pop. But the focus will be on Dempsey, because he'll have built up himself as a star, Daniel Bryan-esque. I mean, he's even got that look, and I could certainly see that for Charlie Dempsey. Tombstone brings an interesting one in, and I'm very, like I say, please do keep those coming, guys, and thank you so much for thinking of how you would book Regal on his return. I do want to talk about Anthony's left field, MJF being in WWE, because I hadn't really thought of that at all. Tombstone says maybe Regal could be GM for NXT Europe. Now, there's not a lot about NXT Europe at the moment. Obviously, we've seen a lot of the NXT UK, the remaining NXT UK stars are popping up in NXT in America now. You've had Isla Dawn is the most recent one. I believe there's another Eof. Sorry, so that's not the way. It's Eofi, whatever. Eofi. Yeah.
I always struggle with that.
Someone click my Aoife Valkyrie. So Aoife Valkyrie is.
I think they changed the name now, didn't they?
It's still Aoife Valkyrie. Oh, hang on, is it? Just checking now, because I need to. So it's still Aoife. No, it's still it's still Aoife Valkyrie.
I can't remember.
Aoife.
Yeah,
interesting.
It's Irish.
Her last match was with Miko Satomura in NXT, and I haven't seen Miko Satomura in a while. So interesting.
No, she had that one match in NXT where she lost the title to Mandy Rose, and then that's it, which was ridiculous, really, because there's a talent that you could really use to teach the younger generation. Miko Satomura is incredible. Yeah, there we go. Aoife is now Lara. I thought she changed.
Okay, Lara Valkyrie. Brilliant. That's great. Fantastic. Thank you, Tombstoner. So yeah, so that you are seeing more and more of these NXT UK stars in NXT now. So I mean, Regal's going to mentor those, and I'm sure it'll be wonderful for him as a legend in British wrestling to be working with these guys as well. But NXT Europe, Anthony, what are your hopes for that? While we're here talking about one of the legends of British wrestling, just quickly, do you think that's going to be a bigger, better version of what NXT UK was? Because NXT UK was great. Obviously, in the early days of our channel, you can see a lot of Anthony doing some incredible work, doing watch-alongs for those shows, the early NXT UK shows. There was a lot of buzz around that, and I think it built a lot of great stars. Tyler Bate, Trent Seven, who was released for whatever reason. But interesting. Your thoughts on NXT Europe, and will that be a better version of what NXT UK was? And could you see Regal in a general manager role for that? But for me, he's got to remain in America. He's not going to want to be. I suppose you can.
It depends, man. I mean, he's from England. He's got a good relationship with Robbie Brookside and stuff like that, who is doing a lot of work at NXT UK. I absolutely think he could. I don't think it'll be NXT Europe for one. I think it'll be NXT UK. I think they'll restart that up. I mean, don't forget the reason that NXT UK stopped was Vince McMahon call, and we don't have Vince McMahon in charge. And actually, Sean was very passionate about NXT UK. That's why he was doing a lot of his early booking and stuff like that. I think that they've had a go at the model, and I actually just think they need to refocus their ambition for the localizations of NXT. So I don't think you have NXT Europe. I think you have NXT UK, NXT France, NXT Germany, and you have the markets there. And while that might not be something that everyone's interested in and looking at these sort of big numbers and stuff, NXT UK was easily one of the biggest UK touring brand at that time, or potential touring brand at that time. They were getting cracking audience numbers even at the show we went to, Dom. They had cracking audience numbers there, and you don't see that a lot in any other UK promotion, sort of them sort of numbers. So because they've got the brand reach of WWE. So if you do that, you can still make a successful company within the localized places.
Do you not think NXT Germany, is diluting the brand a little bit? And how?
No.
What do you do with television deals for that? Where are the because again you've got
network.
I know you've got the
you don't need television deals. Yeah, you put them on the network, but in the localizations, you get local TV deals. Like I think people think about this as impacting WWE as the global product as it is, and NXT is not a success because it's not getting the same ratings in NXT. Well, of course it's not, because there's not as many people in the UK. However, that doesn't mean that you can't have a successful wrestling promotion within the UK under the WWE umbrella. And you have NXT France, you have NXT Germany, you have NXT. Each of them are its own touring market. I see it at work with shows that I do at work, that there's promotions that tour the UK with one old WWE wrestler and the rest of sort of new guys who make a very successful living both for the performers and for the management of them companies, as well as giving a family entertainment. And maybe that's what NXT UK should be as well. Maybe one of the problems with NXT UK is that it become a serious product that we was expected to watch every week, as opposed to a bit of family fun. Maybe that's the market they need to head to. But I certainly think after having the experiences of launching NXT UK, they could do some make some alterations to make it more successful in the future.
Yeah, a very interesting point, man. I mean, I still think it will be NXT Europe. I think NXT Europe will combine, German talent, British talent. I think, like I say, I think it will be NXT UK. It'll be the same model where they have people from all over the place. I'd like to see someone like Killer Kelly, who's now doing great in Impact, come back representing Portugal, something like that. So I believe NXT Europe will basically be what NXT UK was, but obviously more more focus on the European element. And Regal can maybe make some cameos. I mean, let's not forget Finn Balor cameoed in NXT UK. There were plenty of cameos across NXT UK, and I think that was what we'll see. Regal could just pop in there. But very interesting discussion, guys, around that. WB and Thomas for 444. I don't think I've ever read your full name out, Thomas fan, but there we are. They should start doing a storyline where Charlie Dempsey has been going to this secret trainer to help him get prepared for fights, and the pay-per-view reveals that it's William Regal. That's some long-term storytelling, Thomas fan, as Regal, as we revealed at the beginning. Regal is now because of his AEW contract, he's not allowed to be on TV for a year. But if we were fantasy booking that's pretty cool. A secret trainer, but probably a not so secret trainer because the dirt sheets, people like What Culture, Wrestle Talk, people like ourselves even would maybe be talking about rumors around Regal being the trainer. So I think it would be the secret, not so secret trainer if they were going to do that. And I think a lot of you are talking about, Regal coming back and training Dempsey. So I think that seems to be what the general consensus is here in the chat. Interesting,
because that's not what I do at all.
Well, that's what we're going to talk about, what you would do, and it's because it's wonderful to have you here, Anthony. But yeah, thank you, Thomas Fan, for that. Sassy brings an interesting point, which I think we should address because it's one of the rumors that's come to light over the last week. And Anthony, as an AEW AEW reporter, AEW broadcaster, AEW.
No, shut up, Mark, broadcaster reporter. I'm just a dude who watches wrestling, right? None of these bloody titles, Dom. Back off with your titles. I'm not a journalist. I just watch a bit of wrestling. It's cool, right?
I mean, you have. And
I'm also the Give Me a Whole Yeah champion.
Yeah, you are. Where's the belt, man?
No, we're going to have a champion celebration at the end of the stream, so don't worry. We've got that still to go.
Is that what's happening? Well, let's just clarify. Anthony isn't a journalist, but over the years he's done some great wrestling journalism, haven't you? You've done some good interviews with the likes of Rosemary.
Read Sammy's comment. Yeah, I did real well. I hope the rumors of him bashing AEW are not true. That's like biting the hand that feeds you. So them rumors come out from an interview with EC3, who has other interests in getting that out, for one. Second of all, I think in any working relationship, there are issues that we have at work. Me and Dom have issues on the podcast. Not many, but we do have issues and we do have differences of opinion. That is part of working life. I don't think anyone is like truly happy with everything, Dom? Or like have you reached a pinnacle at that point and all you're going to do is fall down?
To be fair, man, I'm pretty happy with my working life. I'm pretty tired a lot of the time, but
you're pretty tired a lot of the time, yeah. So you'd rather not be as tired.
Yeah, but it's kind of part of the job. So I see what.
I think he's gone into AEW, and it's not the same as WWE. They don't have a performance center. They get to a venue, and because they don't work every day all week, they have a ring set up in the ring. And Regal was going down with Danielson and giving some of the younger talent some advice every day, which is great. Which is exactly the way that you should be using William Regal and Daniel Bryanson. However. And saying that certain people aren't taking the advice. Yes, that's going to be a frustration, but we all have frustrations in our work. And I think that EC3 has taken that out of context. And I think it was wrong of him to take it out of context. But again, he has his own reasons for saying that, shall we say.
He's got to control his narrative.
There we go, man. Nice.
I've had an opportunity, as you'll see on the podcast, to do some interviews with Control Your Narrative stars, and I had a couple of conversations with EC3 to set those up. He's a very intelligent guy. He knows what he's doing when it comes to promote. When it comes to self promotion, when it comes to getting the message out there. In terms of to the bigger wrestling sites.
Everyone's talking about William Regal. What does EC3 do? Talk about William Regal, and got a lot of quotes off it as well. So, and gets people talking. He's clever, man. He's a clever dude.
Yes, very, very clever. So yeah, interesting. But I don't think it's quite like that. I think there's some people that may have been like that, but if they are, then that's on them. That's unfortunate. You got to take. Regal will never be out of fashion, never be out of style in wrestling. You can always learn from a guy like William Regal. And I don't know if you agree with. I feel like you might agree with that, Anthony. I think the problem I find this in most industries, ageism, is a problem. And if that is what's happening to William Regal, that's a real shame, because Regal is the best of the best. There is nobody better than him to learn from, to train with. And I think that's the same right up until your 70s and 80s. I think you can offer insight and valuable insight to people.
I think you can always offer insight and valuableness to people, but I don't necessarily think that you are always the best person to be trained by or not. I think, especially with art, like there's an argument that you shouldn't study art if you want to be an artist, because if you study art, then you take on too much influence from everyone else. And I think that there's a potential argument for that. Wrestling is an art form, as simple as that. So I think it's down to personal choice, man. I think you can, in my opinion, would I be down there? Absolutely. I'd be taking what I could, but also throwing away other stuff, as I think. But there is an argument that to be an artist, to be as progressive as some of the people in AEW, which is how AEW has started, they've had to develop their own techniques and skills, and that's what has created AEW. So I think there's an argument both ways, Dom. I don't think it's black and white.
No, you're right, but what are you saying, that Regal is the older Regal gets, the more irrelevant he gets?
No, not at all. What I'm saying is it's up to the individuals to decide whether how much advice they want to take. Wrestling styles are very different. William Regal is a very different wrestler to certain people. How much is Kenny Omega going to get from William Regal? I don't know, because he's got a very different style. But then you could argue that it would improve certain elements of his wrestling style, and it may do, but maybe that's not the way he wants to go. It's so difficult, Dom. Put him with a Zack Sabre Jr., put him with these sort of great technical wrestlers. I don't know. I don't know the answer, Dom. I don't know.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, Anthony, because I find, again, I've had many conversations with musicians about this over on Soundsphere, and it's something I really struggle with. The idea that when you get to a certain point, no matter how good you are, you become irrelevant. It happens in it happens in music, it happens in the military, it happens in whatever industry, and I wish that would change. I think it's important that people are given the respect they deserve. But I think wrestling has that, though. I mean, the Hall of Fame exists, and whatever you think of the Hall of Fame, it does give people credit for, their time and energy. But yeah, Regal's
does it also by not putting certain people in, does it encourage negativity towards them certain people as well? Talk about teams like Demolition and stuff like that. While it creates positivity, does it also create negativity as well?
It's a wider debate, and I think it may be one that we come back to at some point around ageism in wrestling. Because I certainly, for example, I might, if I was talking about theatre to somebody, I'd probably want to bring you in, but I'd maybe in 10 years' time, I would bring you in, but I'd bring somebody else in as well to get a different perspective. But I wouldn't not take on your viewpoint. Do you know what I mean? Because you've got your own set of experiences. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
so
of course,
I guess it's about maybe having Regal there alongside in 10 years' time, a Regal there alongside a Kenny Omega, or a Cody Rhodes.
What I'm saying is I don't think that artists should be forced into anything, and there's other opportunities that they have. It wasn't just Regal that was training backstage. There's other people. There's Billy Gunn, there's Dustin Rhodes, and all of these people have you could argue they have more recent experience as well. You could argue that because but then you could argue Regal has more experience in training. I think it's a really difficult argument, and I'm sure Regal would have been annoyed that people didn't turn up, as anyone is. If you put on a seminar, Dom, and people don't turn up, and it's catered for a specific audience, and they don't turn up, you're going to be pissed off about that, right?
Yeah, obviously, like I'm in a privileged position where I get to do seminars on music industry stuff, and sometimes people do turn up, sometimes they don't, and I kind of take it, in my stride, because obviously it depends on the day, the mood, etc., etc. And there are lots of factors to that. But I always do the best for the people that are there. Whether there's 2 people there, whether there's 200 people there, and I've done seminars to 5 people, and I've done seminars to well over 300 people. So
we do a seminar every week on the Give Me a Whole Year podcast to varying numbers of people. Thankfully, the AEW stream is the most watched stream.
Well, but in terms of views, SmackDown is. But
I knew I'd reel you in there, boy. I tried to reel you in.
But yeah, and like I say, if I was to have, if I was to have you talk about the arts, and we will go back, I'm aware we've kind of trailed off. We'll go back to William Regal in a second, but we would talk about the arts. I'd have you in. I'd have, I'd have another theatre tech in, maybe somebody like that, and just different experiences. So it's like anything, isn't it? Diversity and representation. You want as many viewpoints as possible. If I was doing a wrestling seminar, you better believe if William Regal knocked on my door, I'd say yes. But also, I'd have Cody Rhodes. Or I'd have Dustin, or I'd have.
And time is limited, man. I mean, there's other things that are important. When you go in there to see, when you're flying down there for a day, it might be a perfect opportunity to catch up with someone to play a video game, and that can be important as well, not just for our future career, but for our mental health and to stay cool. Dino's joined us. Hey, Dino.
Yeah. Dino, we are Polynesians, and yet we do cater to an entirely almost American audience. You're very rare and very welcome, Dino, to have.
Because wrestling's on at like 1 a.m, man.
Yeah,
I mean, most of the people that watch us are at 1 a.m, which tend to be American. But dude, you're welcome to hang out and watch AEW Dynamite with me tonight, man. That'd be cool.
Absolutely. Anthony will be back watching AEW Dynamite. We probably need to wind up in a few minutes. So guys, get your. We'll wind up in sort of 10. We'll finish at 10:02.
No, we won't, because that's when I start.
Okay, all right, we'll finish in 5 minutes then, guys. So get your final pitches in.
Quickly, there is the potential for MJF to come into WWE. It's not going to happen. I think he's locked into contract for a few more years. I think that was part of the negotiations. What would I do with William Regal in a master world? He'd be creating a faction, because I think he did that absolutely sensationally in AEW. And I think that he would be great to do that as a faction against the Bloodline. I think that's exactly what you need right now, because that Bloodline is the biggest story in wrestling, and most exciting story in wrestling right now. Having that faction go up against the Bloodline, I have no idea who it would involve. It doesn't really matter.
You can't bring in a faction, Anthony.
Why?
And then not come up with any members. So give me one, give me 2.
So British. Put Walter in it. There we go. Put Sheamus in it. I don't care. Having managed the Brawling Brutes, let's make no.
That's pretty good actually. Because it's better than what was the one with Rusev, and what was that called? The European.
The World.
The World. Yeah.
Yeah.
So not that.
No. But because the reason for that is because you have the counterpoint in Paul Heyman, and so to have him and Paul Heyman go up against each other as managers of these teams would be exciting. It'd be exciting, and it'd be great TV, and it'd extend the Bloodline thing further, which I think they need to do right now.
A year down the line, you think the Bloodline feuding with a William Regal-led faction?
No, I'd do it next week, but that's fantasy booking. You know what I mean?
What you mean? Oh, right. Okay. So if you'd have Regal. Yeah,
ideally, I'd have the Bloodline in a year down the line. I think so. Yeah, I don't think you get rid of something that's so good.
I know. It is definitely the best thing on television at the moment.
What are you going to have after that?
Well, yeah. Who knows? Who knows? But a Regal-led faction done right. The League of Nations. Thank you, Dino. The League of Nations done right. Dino. Yeah, the League of Nations done right under William Regal. Now that is something that we can get behind. So I would put in Tyler Bate. I would put in Pete Dunne. I would put in
Trent Seven. Bring him back.
Trent Seven and Ridge Holland. There's my faction.
I wouldn't do Ridge Holland actually.
Ridge Yorkshire's own Ridge Holland. He's going to get better and better. He's going to get better and better. Drew, Brawling Brutes, KO, Seth, and Ciampa.
Drew's better than Ridge Holland. Yeah, Drew.
Maybe put Drew in there for now. KO, Seth, Ciampa, a Regal-led faction with Ciampa in it would be good.
You kind of want it British, don't you?
Yeah, I think it needs to be British. But interesting thoughts, Sassy.
Nice.
Guys, we're gonna wind it up now. If you've got any more, if you've got any last minute pitches, you want to type them up real fast, we'll try and review them. But thank you guys so much for making the time for us tonight to come with some pitches. Obviously, we've been fairly short and sweet with it. If you want to comment in the comments with your own pitches, please do. I know there was an opportunity to vote as well, and 71% of you said that Regal will come back and manage his son, Charlie Dempsey. So thank you very much for that. Wade Barrett. Yeah, nice. Wade Barrett.
Yeah, fantastic. He was in League of Nations as well. Dom, I did say at the start of the stream, so we'll do this quickly. This is a very special evening this evening, Dom, let me tell you. It's the celebration of Anthony's championship. First of all, do you want to introduce me? Yeah, that's the only reason I came on, yeah. So give me 3 minutes.
What? Wait.
I think you should introduce the champion first of all. The champion doesn't introduce himself.
Right. Okay. Anthony, the Give Me a Whole Year Wrestling Podcast world champion, who is pretty good at predictions to a point where you are, I believe, the only. Oh, no, Dan's also won it twice.
Yeah.
So you are now a 2-time Give Me a Whole Year champion. I am not anymore.
Yeah.
A champion.
Well, you never was. You've only one time.
I was a 1-time Give Me a Whole Year champion. I'm very proud of that fact. How are you feeling? How does it feel to be a champion?
Thanks for the rubbish introduction, Dom. I don't.
What were you expecting from me?
I wanted more, man.
2-time Give Me a Whole Year champion, the humble, the natural, the greatest champion to ever have lived. It's
Well, thank you so much.
Your 2-time Give Me a Whole.
Did you upload that in the audio bit and it loops? That was great.
Yeah.
That was great. I love it.
Thanks, man. Yes, I did smash all your asses at the last show, the Survivor Series, the WWE show, of course. Going back through the history, obviously Dom lost it at Survivor Series in a devastating defeat. Really, that was what was the date of that, Dom? Do you remember that? It was a couple. You initially won it at Extreme Rules. That was October the 9th, 2022.
One of the best days of my life.
Yeah,
Bray Wyatt returning and winning the championship.
Understandable. There was no humble pie there. You was screaming into the microphone. Disgraceful. You continue to keep it during Crown Jewel on a technicality, but we allowed it. And then obviously at Survivor Series, November the 24th, 2022, Dan took that belt back. Currently has the belt on his back wall. A fake champion. He's currently sick, and I don't want any of his germs. I can't do the media calls if I am sick. So I'll get the belt when I feel like it. Really. I'm quite happy to put it on the line this weekend. I knew you'd put it up. I knew you'd put a predictions video in because you just want that belt back for Christmas. However, it is going to look good on me at Christmas as well, Dom.
I wasn't even expecting you to notice that we'd done it, to be fair. And I also...
I've been busy at work, man.
Well, yeah, well, that's it. I know. Bless you. I was very, very happy to see you pop up on the screen when I loaded this one up. So, and thank you all as we head into Anthony's AEW Dynamite stream. I will be joining for the first bit. I'm going to go and have a number 2, and then I'll come back. I might make a cup of tea, and then I'll come back.
Watch his head swell even more. Sassy, right? The reason she says that is because she's the manager of Danny, right? And listen to me, Sassy. Listen, I don't have a manager. I got cheerleaders, okay? And anyone can sign up to be a cheerleader. If you want to be a cheerleader, I've got cheerleaders. Jack is one of the Anthony cheerleaders. Dom, what have you got?
The Anthony Nailers.
The Anthony Nailers.
The Anthony Nailers, as in they nail you because they're your cheerleaders. Anthony Nailers.
That didn't work. Let the champion speak. Sassy says I need a smile. That's so true. To the almighty world champion, and yeah, thank you very much. Watch his head swell even more. Sassy, number 1 moderator this evening. Well done. Great. Love you all, and see you in Hull. Oh, the Anthony Nail. It's because my second name's Nail on, you see. Dudes, I'm going to be watching Dynamite in like 5 minutes. Just let me have a smoke and that, and then come and hang out with me.
Cool. Yeah, nice one, guys. Thank you very much for joining this special episode of How You Would Book William Regal in WWE. Put some ideas in the comments if you come back to this later on. And thank you very much for watching. Join us for AEW Dynamite in a bit. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. See you in a second. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
The champion didn't do that. The champion didn't do it.
This is Big E from the new
champion.
Give me that.
The humble, the natural, the greatest champion to ever have lived. It's
Go off.